Good morning to everyone out there. My name is Joe. Right now it is about 6:03 on Wednesday morning, June 26th. I've actually been up for an hour and a half already. I woke up about 4:30. I think my wife did as well because she already head off to CrossFit. I started getting ready, but I knew I needed to do my next installment of this. So I've actually been spending the last hour or so typing up a bunch of notes for the first time to talk about here to make sure I kind of capture everything. But let me get on with the show for you and to tell you what my thoughts are for today and from the last week. Okay, let me just jump off. My graphics department has been able to come up with my latest thing for you. This is where I'm sitting at today. I'm finally in the 270s now. 278.3. Now, when I started this, I was at 286. And I was still, at that time, eating whatever I was eating, mornings and nights, eating right before I went to sleep, everything else, and I do live a sedentary lifestyle. Since I began doing this, knowing that Ozempic is supposed to shrink your stomach, almost like chemically it's giving you a lap band, I had already begun to cut back on things I was intaking. So I did that act as if idea. Act as if your stomach is already not big enough to handle what you want to put into it. So I have been putting in my own versions of a diet, just pretty much dropping the as many snacks as possible, and I've been dropping the capacity that I put into like a bowl or whatever else, and just eating a sensible portion. And I'm moving on that way. So seems to be doing pretty well so far, and I want to take this train for as long as I can. One of the things I actually do to kind of help me out, and I've done this in the past too, is I'm kind of a fan of things like Slim Fast. It's good for me because it kind of like just limits what my options are for like breakfast. So I'll grab a shake, I'll put it together, and say, that's my breakfast. Now stick to it. Try to keep the plan. And if you're going to have something later on, if I'm still hungry at like 10 o'clock, grab an apple, grab a banana, grab something fine, and nothing that's going to be like, oh my God, you just had a shake and now you're having like a bagel, One of the things I actually did recently is, I guess Slim Fast might be one of those companies that isn't as popular anymore, so the stores don't even have the powders much anymore. I actually had to go pick up one of these like pre-made shakes or whatever else. So I've been doing this for the last couple days. One thing though, and I made a mistake when I bought this, is this is one of their protein-rich shakes, and I've been trying to avoid those high-protein ones personally because at one point I think I did get a blood test, and I was taking like a high-protein version of Slim Fast, and it did something to one or two of my blood levels. Because I was getting a protein shake in, but not using it. So I did have a bad effect of having that done. So I make it a point not to do that. So I'm going to do this today. This is my my fourth shot of the quarter dose. I actually have a follow-up appointment with my doctor next week, and we'll discuss if it's time to bump up to the half dose or not. Interestingly enough, by the way, is from last week, I actually had my first bruising at my injection site. So that hadn't happened before, and I'm not concerned really. It is what it is. But I'm going to be in a similar area today. So let me just do what I got to do here. I'm sure this is excellent video looking down off screen. So got a little alcohol on the spot. I've already clicked in my pen. It's dialed in at my 0.25 milligrams, and you cannot see in the washed out screen. So let's do this. Clickety click. All done. Okay, one thing I do want to mention, which I've been lax at so far, is I'm supposed to be exercising. And summers are going to be a little bit difficult as far as timing is concerned sometimes if I want to go to, like, the gym or actually go see a trainer, because the kids have a different schedule this time of the summer, between like camps and whatnot. So it's one of those things where between my working, her working, one kid goes to school for like a half day in the mornings from like 9 to 12, and the other one is an all day kind of thing, which isn't a problem. But how can I get to my office a couple times a month? How can she go to the gym and I go to the gym, that we both follow our dreams of where we want to be physically and actually get there? So, but one of the reasons why I say I really need to start doing this, besides it being healthy for you anyway, is that I didn't know this was a thing until I actually watched that Adam Sandler movie, Click. And in the movie, he actually gains a bunch of weight, as his years go by into the future, and then he loses it, and he kind of gets this, like, flap of belly flat skin. It's almost like, if I use my shirt here, it's literally like this around his midsection. And he jokes about it because his son did it too. Excuse me. And he's like, oh, we'll have a flat fight, whatever else. But that's a real thing. Your skin stretches because you get a little bit bigger, and then if you lose the weight, the skin is still stretched. So I reached out to my trainer, or a guy I'm trying to use now, and he's like, listen, we can mitigate that. You got to come in here, we got to do some strength training, we got to do some weight training, because your skin has a certain elasticity to it that if we start building around it, making muscles and whatnot, it might keep it a little taut. So I certainly need that. But I more importantly need to get there and have him help me do this. So while things are great having like weight loss, whatever else, you still gotta stay in a shape by actually expending effort and energy and doing some exercising. So that's what I'm gonna say about that. I have an itch in my nose. Oh god. So annoying. Okay. Now, I put this off saying this next part for a while, but I'm just going to say it now. This is where I'm going to say, I got to talk some shit now. Literally. So, before starting this, before self-curbing my own appetites, whatever else, I really wasn't taking care of myself. You can almost look at me and tell. Breakfasts, maybe a bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel, or a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese on a bagel, twice a week, possibly even 3 times a week. Okay? Of course, I also enjoy cooking, so you're in a process of, here's the cheese, here's the bacon, here's the meat, whatever it is, and making the bagel, toasted, and yada yada. And dinners, because we have 2 little ones, usually you're getting them ready. It's like, all right, now go eat your dinner. Now you have their dessert. Bring them to make sure they get their pajamas on. They can play for a half hour, then they go back up to bed, yada yada as well. This usually meant that my wife and I wouldn't eat our dinners until like 8:30. The kids are finally down, if they even stay down. Because if you got kids, you'll know they'll want to come out and talk to you as much as they want. But once they get them to bed, we'll finally take something off the stove, put it in a bowl, and we would sit there in front of the TV and eat our dinner at 8:30 at night. Probably get to watch one episode, because we're old enough that we wake up early and go to sleep early, that, that's all we have time for. In fact, for the last bunch of months, we've been watching the X-Files mainly. Watching the entire series, including the spin-offs of like Millennium and The Lone Gunman, and the movies that, we're almost at the end of it, but it was like we'd watch one episode of X-Files, and that's it. Put our dishes away in the sink, go to bed, wake up and do it again the next day. So because of that whole, which people say you should never do, eat, then go to bed, your food just sits there in your stomach all night long while you're laying down and not being active at all. My mornings were generally 3 poop mornings. I would have that Once I get out of bed and the system tries to restart, boom, got to get rid of what's been sitting there all night long. Then I come downstairs, maybe do the dishes, get something ready, or do an audiobook or whatever, and then they have that second one, like the I've been moving around a little bit, this one's coming out. And then I've learned that my body is more of a push system, so something comes in, something's got to go out. Once I have my breakfast, I'd have to go again. So that was my morning ritual, so to speak. Now, since I've been curbing my own appetite and possibly even taking the drugs, I know they have side effects to see if you can go or not, I've definitely dropped one of those. So it might be happenstance or it might be the semaglutides, but something's happened to my ritual and people do experience it. So I can't account for this 100% non-medically, but it happens and it's a welcome effect sometimes. Now I will say, and I used to do this before when I was just trying to diet, but I'm doing it again now, is when I know I'm working from home, I'll throw some fiber in my diet too. I'm certainly not getting this with the food I'm eating. So I'll have this. It's good for your system to begin with. And yeah, having high fiber does have its own side effect. So if somebody is possibly being constipated because of a drug like this, maybe you gotta throw some fiber like this into your system. And then I will take care of that issue. Now on to my last section, and then I'll leave you all to go for the rest of your day. I want to give a shout out to one of my listeners here. Her name is Jamie. Jamie, how you doing? Welcome. She had reached out and asked me a question because she's going through this with her husband actually, and said, why Ozempic? Why am I specifically taking Ozempic? And what I'll tell you is, if you go to my last episode, in her commentary, I actually laid out a pretty thorough answer saying this is why my doctor said it. I don't think he said it specifically for this reason, but he's a doctor. He had his one reason. Versus things like Wegovy or Mounjaro or even something from a combination lab. It's a pretty good transcript, so go take a look. I suggest you check it out. If there's anything that sparks your mind for a question, feel free to ask. I'm pretty great with actually giving responses, and if it's something that no one else has mentioned before and might seem important, I'll probably throw it in my next episode. So, it's good for everyone to share this knowledge with each other, because you don't know what kind of journey is going on here. In fact, it's interesting because this girl, Jamie, reached out to me because she mentioned that she's not seeing very many male perspectives on taking these semaglutides. And her husband now is. So, getting it from housewives that just want to look better is one thing, but getting it from people that kind of need this in their system for the moment is another. And if you go there as well in the response thread, you'll actually follow her husband's story or in his struggle that she shared while he's taking his own semaglutide ritual. And like I said, it's another male perspective. And men have this problem all the time, so you don't get it from me, you get it from that gentleman as well. And if at this point, Jamie, you happen to drag your husband in here on a rewatching of this, let me just talk to him for 1 second, and maybe this will help out. So, Mr. Jamie, what your wife says in your backstory, it's unfortunate. Sorry to hear that, Happens to the best of us. And I think we're about the same generation too, because she mentioned that you might be 50, and I will be in like 5 months. So, we should be seeing things from the same mindset in a way. But let me tell you something about needles. I love needles. I got no problem with needles. Almost as much as I love going to the dentist. For me, going to the dentist is, I look forward to it every 6 months. In fact, I just went a couple days ago. Unfortunately, I have a filling that's old. It needs to be repaired. I'm going to go this Monday and get it repaired. But just going there and being fully cleaned all over again and having like a new this is actually the status of my mouth right now, I'm very happy to see. So, needles, dentists, love them both. In fact, this is going to be weird to do, but if you see this, you see this little spot right here? Okay, got another one on this side over here. I've actually been giving and donating plasma and platelets for the better part of the last 10 years. Almost since I got back from my honeymoon, to tell you the truth. Although we went to the Dominican Republic, which was fantastic, but due to the high propensity of things like AIDS out there, I'm not allowed to donate anything for at least like 3 to 6 months until I'm back. But I've been going there almost every week. Now, in that process, they stick a high gauge needle in that vein. And what it does is it goes through a process of taking your blood and giving it back to you. They pull out your blood for a while, then they spin it in a machine which separates certain areas of it, take the yellow stuff, which could be platelets or plasma, depending on which I give, and give the rest back to you. And this draw and return cycle happens about 7 times. So, you're on the machine for about an hour. And I've gotten used to this, and I have no problem with the kind of stuff. But I will say, because I do feel for you, I used to have a huge problem with needles. Not from fear, but I had a reaction to them. When I had surgery on my throat about 25 years ago, it's turn of the century, I had surgery for sleep apnea. Okay? They put an IV in me in the hospital right before the surgery. And I didn't want to look. She's over here doing this, and my mind's over there saying, I'm not watching. Go do what you got to do, you know. And my blood pressure dropped, and I practically passed out. In fact, they had to postpone the surgery for a short period of time until I got back to normal. And I actually had a similar thing happen to me when I got my tattoo. I got a small tattoo on my ankle, on the inside of my ankle, and the dude had like gotten maybe an inch of ink. And he told me I was holding your leg, and then it went stiff and it went cold, and I had passed out. So when I went to my doctor in a post-op, she was going to take a blood sample from me as well, and I was telling her, I was like, listen, you know, it was so weird. Right before I had the surgery, they put the needle in me, and I kind of got, you know, lightheaded, and I passed out. And in the middle of saying that to this nurse, I was like, kind of like right now. And she was, all right, hold on. And she brought me over to a table, and I laid down for a while, and she told me what it was. And it actually has a name. It's called a vasovagal reaction. That's what they call it. And essentially, it's a mind thing. It's almost like a body's way of counteracting the fact that I'm having an emotional upset episode. So, needle was going in. I was pretending it wasn't happening to me, and I'm not even going to pretend this is going on. And boom, I got upset. It happened. So from then on, I knew this, and they said, listen, you might have to lay down if you ever get stuck again. But then I was like, listen, instead of my mind being over here, I'm going to watch them do this. I'm going to sit there and say, you're putting the needle in me. Here I am. Boom, face to face with it. And I'll tell you what, never had that problem again. 15 years ago. And now it's been 10 years, and I get stuck on the weekly. Not a problem, never had a problem again. So you do have control over this. Just need to be strong and know what's actually happening. That they're just putting a little bit of an alleyway so they can divert some of the traffic into the alley, take it out somewhere else, and they give you a Band-Aid and you walk away and it heals. So, if you're in the moment and say, this is happening to me right now, watch it, you should be just fine and never have this problem again. Okay? The second thing I'll say to you, Mr. Jamie, is if the reports are true and you might not want to leave the house because of, you know, you don't like the situation you're in, you gotta reconfigure your value of other people's opinion of you. Because it's not that important. It's not your character that's being attacked. Going out to the beach is fun. Are you going to avoid that because of some millennial or some teen giving you a face if they look at you? That's ridiculous. They don't have an attention span to begin with. And you're talking about some people that don't even know which gender they are. Or they get PTSD watching Seinfeld, Or God forbid, Bugs Bunny. There's a gun in that show. Oh my God. So their opinions are worthless half the time. So it's not something that should ever stop you from going out. I mean, hell, I belong to a pool in our neighborhood. When my kids want to go in, I'll let them go in, but I'll take off my shirt and I'll get in there with them. Do I look good with my shirt off? Hell no. But you know something? I'm going to bring my 3-year-old out into the deeper part and get him comfortable with being in a pool. I want to take my 6-year-old and throw him up in the air and just watch his face light up with the exhilaration that I caused him. And we bond together as a family just that much even closer. So, fuck what other people think. I'm living my life. And I would hope you would do the same thing. I mean, as it is right now, do you think people would choose to look at this face? I mean, come on. But I'm speaking words that people might want to hear. I'm speaking them on this topic right now. I'll speak to them on a topic of my book reviews. Or they'll just get the sound of my voice when I do audio recordings with this studio here. In case y'all are ever wondering why I have this big thing over here, that's my studio setup with sound dampeners. Okay? I have this platform and I choose to use it. So I'll say to you, Mr. Jamie, congrats on your first step. That's amazing, and I truly hope all well goes with you. Now get your ass outside and enjoy yourself some kind of local open air concert or something this summer. But good luck. I hope everything works well. Oh, interestingly enough, and I'll end on this point. Oh, incidentally, if that's all I had to say to you today, so you can walk away if you wish, or you can keep on listening, that's totally up to you. But I mentioned above when I had surgery at the turn of the century. So the reason I had my surgery on my throat was for sleep apnea. Like I said, this was 1999, so 25 years ago, right? Because my options were wear that breathing machine at night or get the surgery. And I told the nurse, I was like, F you, I'll never get laid again if I'm wearing this thing every night. Give me the surgery. And for me, the surgery was, they took out my tonsils, I think they did something with my adenoids, and they pretty much took a cheese grater to my throat to smooth everything out. Well, unfortunately with my life, since then I've gained about 100 pounds. So yeah, the sleep apnea is back. And by the way, if anybody out there has a big snoring problem, you might have this problem too. So my doctor said, my pulmonary guy said, they don't do surgeries like that anymore. They found out it really doesn't do anything. So I now am the proud owner of a CPAP machine. And they're a pain in the ass, I'll tell you that. But then again, I've only been on it for like 3 days. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights. So, no, excuse me one second. My wife's had one for a few months now. And I've already given her the jokes about, this thing being on her breathing like Darth Vader. Or even like Bane from Batman. No one cared who I was until I wore the mask. That's my acting for today, thank you. But I think this will give me a much needed boost on my journey. Because apnea is literally you stop breathing while you sleep. And snoring is your breathing, but something is blocking the full breath. So it like flaps and it gives you that snoring sound. So when you stop breathing while you sleep, you literally are choking. So your body has to it's going to try to breathe and nothing happens. And finally and you come out of it. Well, when you do that, you're waking yourself up a little bit. Now you're still pretty tired. You go back to sleep, but you've now interrupted your restful sleep. So By doing the machine, I shouldn't have that problem. I'll get more oxygen in my body. And oxygen in your blood is literally the definition of aerobic. So, getting a full night's uninterrupted sleep with oxygen flowing through my body uninterrupted all night, my body is going to work better. So, it sucks, but it's necessary. And if I follow in my father's footsteps, he's about 85 right now, and he just lost a ton of weight, but he used that Noom program to do it. But prior to that, he actually was on a CPAP machine. By losing a bunch of weight, he didn't need it anymore. He can now sleep and breathe easily without it because the weight isn't pushing on his chest. So I hope that I will no longer need the machine and that everything becomes successful between my change in mindset, my change in eating habits, by taking the drug, by exercising, by getting oxygen while asleep. That is a formula for success, and I'm looking forward to it. Hell, I'm down 8 now in the course of 3 weeks. And if you're on this journey too, I hope you get the same success or even more. Okay? That's all I have for today. Enjoy the rest of your day. I've been talking for almost a half hour now. You can almost see behind me the light on my window is getting brighter and brighter as the sun comes up. But take care. I will see you again in 1 week today. Bye-bye now.